Start a small business. No need to work 40, 50 hours a week, slaving your life away. Obtain financial freedom, be your own boss, and create your own destiny. Moguls are the new superstars. The path to country club membership and a leased Mercedes-Benz is paved in gold as you take your business trips to Orlando or Vegas. Validation from your in-laws is just an LLC and Facebook business page away. At least, that's what they tell you anyways. Through social media, websites, and targeted ads, you're sold an image. Small business owners seem to walk on water. You'd think you're the last person on earth working a regular job with a regular boss. But there's trouble in paradise, and its name is in over your head. People start looking to start their own business, don't know what they don't know. But that's why we started our Small Business Confidential podcast, to share what we've learned from years of experience. There's not a lot of people in on this, so remember, dear podcast listeners, you heard it here first, off the record, on the QT, and very hush-hush.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Riley with A'Marri and Brook, and another fun-filled episode. And we're going to talk about the magic of AI and ChatGPT in your operations, both real estate and your own particular business. So we're going to give a few suggestions, how to approach it, how to use it. So here in Cleveland Heights, Ohio, it is absolutely stunning weather. 72 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, no humidity, temperatures at night in the 50s. Just couldn't get any better. So how are you guys doing?
Good, yeah. You summed it up. I started off the day wearing pants, and now I'm in shorts.
All right. How about you, A'Marri?
Good. I mean, it's been pretty quiet around here at the office, like I was just telling Brooke. So always a good opportunity to just kind of go through all my different emails and jobs under me and, sharing out some housekeeping. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about ChatGPT. Let's just go around the horn, starting with you, A'Marri, because I know you've been working with it with our programmer, Jonah. So you go up first. How do you use ChatGPT?
Well, for me I won't say personally, but the way that I use it a lot is a lot of questions that I would normally put into Google and have to sift through a bunch of sponsored ads and irrelevant links and stuff like that. I just kind of go to ChatGPT, and instead of like writing it as such a prompt, it's more of like a conversation I'm having with it or talking to it more casually, not having to really narrow down to a few words like you would a Google prompt, and just saying, hey, ChatGPT, there was this restaurant in Cleveland that I heard about, but I can't remember the name. And it was like a couple of these kinds of things on the menu, or this kind of thing that they were talking about. What restaurant would that be? And it'll just come up with a few options, or I ran into this scenario at work, and you can even dictate it. You don't even have to type this stuff out. It just records your voice, dictates, and, I ran into this kind of scenario at work and I'm trying to problem solve this. What suggestion do you have? And you just keep narrowing it down until you get everything that you want out of that interaction with it.
How have you used it with your work? I mean, I know I'll just answer my own question. You can elaborate on it. I know we've started to use ChatGPT to literally record and document all the key meetings we've had, correct?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, even sometimes when we're doing a podcast, I mean, not necessarily like this on Zoom, I would figure out how to do that because you're recording the audio internally through Zoom. But even when we're having a podcast in person, I'll just have ChatGPT running to dictate everything we're saying and come up with the bullet points. And, that's information I feed Mark and Melanie, when I have all that stuff set up, which isn't all the time, but feeding that to them. And it's like, the description, the title, or, unless you come up with one, everything's already right there, because you're capturing it in the moment. I think that's one of the best features of it in a day-to-day practical use sense.
Right. How about you, Brooke?
The wide range of things I use ChatGPT for is like, I mean, I use it for everything. I use it for work. I use it for like movie recommendations. I use it for like setting a training schedule for working out. It's like, I think one of the other really, really powerful things ChatGPT can do is like, if you're having like a problem, let's say like in like a relationship or with your wife, you can type in like, hey, I'm going through this problem. Like, what are some good responses you suggest that I can say? I listened to a podcast and they said that ChatGPT is being used a lot as a tool, like for like a parent, if they're running into a problem with their kid, like, okay, how do you think I should talk to my son about X, Y, and Z? But to get specifics on like for work, like Mike, for when we were doing the land contract for the house that I bought from you guys, I used ChatGPT to create the amortization schedule. Like the key thing for ChatGPT is like if you type in all the key info, you got to make sure that you're typing it in like specifics. Then it takes, I mean, it took like 5, 6 seconds and it generated a 36-month amortization breakdown, the taxes, insurance, the principal, the interest. But yeah, I guess to sum it up, I mean, I use it for like a lot of aspects of my life.
Yeah, I think that you realize with ChatGPT, and this is where my age comes in handy, because I'm not necessarily intimidated by it, because I've gone through this before back in the 1981, 82, when I got my first Apple computer. And I remember people were like, man, what's this? What, you got a painting company, what do you use a computer for? And it quickly became apparent the more I used it, the more I realized I could apply it across the board to a lot of things. Starting with a word processor, and I didn't have to use some stupid ass typewriter and correct the type if I made a mistake. We just, edit it and save it and come back and work on it, develop a form letter, letterhead. I didn't have to go to the printer and get, it's just amazing how it was such a revolutionary tool that just changed everything. Allowed me to have a small business, but also compete with the big boys. And I think that's always the challenge of technology is if you have a small business or used to managing your real estate portfolio and you're just kind of locked into a routine and a habit of doing things. Well, this is how we do it. We do it this way. We write everything out. Really, you're just missing the boat, because the improved productivity is going to help you get things done just solo. Now you don't have to have another person to hire. Look at ChatGPT as an employee. What's your thoughts, Amari?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about that the other day where, we just but we need to manage everyone up. And when we're managing people up, one of the first things I think of is in what ways are people incorporating AI into their workflow? Because we run into a lot of moments in managing where people ask questions that they could really find the answer if one, they thought about it for a little bit, or two, they used the ChatGPT to at least try to come up with an answer instead of us as managers feeding people the answers. That's something that just constantly has to be reminded to people that this is a tool you need to be using. It's going to put everybody up just at least a little bit in terms of productivity and just being able to solve problems. Whenever I run into a situation where it's kind of like there's not a straightforward answer for this problem that we're trying to solve, and I'm a little bit out of my depths on a particular subject, that's that's when me and Brooke will say, "Hey, just ask ChatGPT, see what it comes up with." And it's not always going to just be some straightforward thing, but at least it gets the ball rolling,
Right.
and then there's momentum instead of just being paralyzed by not knowing something.
Exactly. Exactly. I think we just had a conversation with one of our top senior foremen doing his work order, keeping track of his hours, a lot of extra work. And I kept thinking to myself, Brooke, we got to incorporate ChatGPT into some kind of process, a new AI 21st century work order where they just dictate. I just sold extra work. I've got $1,000 on extra work to do X, Y, Z. And I've got 15 hours on this plus 100 in materials. And we let ChatGPT play that role that you've been playing, where you're helping the foreman out to figure out where they are on the work order. Now we can maybe have ChatGPT be their wingman. What's your thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, just like having used ChatGPT a lot, I think that's an interesting idea. I think the problem, though, that we ran into a half hour ago is like, until you can just like master a spreadsheet and like master keeping track of your hours, like ChatGPT won't do anything unless the person has just the fundamental grasp of, how to like oversee like
Yeah,
extra
I don't
work and
know.
all that.
I don't know. The more I'm thinking about it, the more if we can get like a step-by-step process, like when you have extra work, just dictate it as such, because it'll
I think
prompt you.
I think what we've had foremen do using AI is they'll punch in, hey, here's my attempt at a draft to send to a customer. Can you proofread it? Maybe make it a little more personal or maybe make it more professional. And then I think we can all agree, and Amari, I know you'll agree, that Google's AI Gemini is nowhere close to ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I think that ChatGPT's way more sophisticated. But in terms of what we've been using it more so for our business is just to kind of help like proofread like emails going out to a customer. But you can see like the different, like I always know when a foreman has used Google Gemini because I'm like, there's no way that you are not that positive about making sure someone had a good weekend. So I think you got to be careful about not always relying specifically on something like Google. But for ChatGPT, the beautiful thing about that is like, and Amari, you said this too. I think it's a great like analogy. ChatGPT, it's like you have the ability to have like a conversation. You can be like, hey, nope, I don't like that. Make it a little more like this. And it'll be like, okay, here you go. How's this? Do you want me to add X, Y, and Z? And be like, nope, copy and paste it, and you're done.
Yeah. I think, an aspect to the foreman, how they're interacting with AI and relying more so on the Google AI is because it's just built into the email that we're using. We're already using Google Sheets and Gmail, and it's just kind of right there when it's like, hey, there's this better thing that if you just get a little bit familiar with it, especially the dictate function, I think they would like a lot. It would be of a lot more use, but that convenience factor of Google Gemini is appealing just because it's just literally right there.
Yeah, like I could see.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I could see them like in terms of incorporating it into like, selling extra work and organizing it. I think one way it could play a factor is they're at their Surface Pro, they have ChatGPT up and that they punch in, all right, here's all my hours, here are the extra work, the details. Can you summarize this so I can send it to my customer, but leave out the breakdown of, how much like the setup is. And then it'll be like, yep, here you go. So I could see like that being maybe like a first kind of step. But in terms of incorporating it on the accounting side, like there's, as of like right now, just with our system, like we can't like integrate that into our current system, at least not now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think one of the tricks is it's all well and good to use a computer. It's all well and good to use ChatGPT, but you have to have the imagination and the creativity to incorporate that into the processes that you use to get the end result. And I still say earlier, Brooke, we have got to get, especially with a few of our foremen, the ability for them literally to dictate at the end of the day, I have these hours, go here, 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 and let, I don't know, maybe AI assist you on that. Okay. I don't know. We got to keep thinking about it, but that's definitely a ticket. So look at ChatGPT, everybody, as just another administrative helper. Listen, folks, I'm going to check out. I'm going to turn this over to A'Marri and Brooke, and they're going to continue with some more ChatGPT and AIs. All right, guys?
Okay.
All right. Okay.
All right.
And we'll pick it up next week.
Okay. See you, Mike.
Okay.
No, but it's like I was saying, man, I think I get where Mike is coming from. I just think right now our system, like, there's no way to like incorporate ChatGPT into, because like everyone out there, what we're talking about is Mike created our own software that tracks, our jobs, tracks all of our bills, tracks our payroll. This isn't some thing where you type into the App Store like a download, at least not now. This is a custom software that we've created. So when I say we can't incorporate ChatGPT into our system, like I know that for a fact, but it's not to say that in the future, I'm sure there might be a way to incorporate it, but I definitely agree with Mike. There's so much that we can use as a company and people out there can use as a company, and really look at ChatGPT like, I think he's right. I mean, he's like an employee. He's like, ChatGPT is like an assistant, where if you need to summarize notes for a super long accounting sheet that you got, yeah, you just copy and paste it, and ChatGPT will say, yeah, hey, here's a breakdown. You're spending X amount on marketing. You're spending X amount on these other things. So what do you think about that?
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back.
If you enjoy listening to our Small Business Confidential podcast, we're sure you'll enjoy our first podcast, The Cleveland Real Estate Investor. We give outside investors an inside look into the real estate market in Cleveland. Cleveland has been on the rise, and investors from all over see those cheap prices and salivate. Our job is to educate those investors and steer them in the right direction with several years of experience of how to do it right and many examples of how to do it wrong. Find the Cleveland Real Estate Investor podcast on any app you listen to your podcast today.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I really like about the whole ChatGPT interface and the way that at least I use it is more so, and I started doing this more the more that we were having meetings and using the dictate functionality there, which was more so telling a story. I might almost ramble to ChatGPT about like a situation that just happened, like maybe an interaction with a coworker that didn't really go the way I wanted it to go, or, it's like what may have been a better way to handle that, or something that could change structurally, in the way that, we're interacting with people or subcontractors or whatever. And just getting some feedback there just from ChatGPT, which is able to access all these different places and articles and sources and all these different places and information on the internet, and feed me things that's already out there that would be so much harder for me to try to just go through page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on Google, going through, and it's not to say that you don't want to keep reading, you definitely want to keep reading articles, definitely want to keep reading books, finding stuff for yourself, but it's just gets that information to you so much quicker, gets suggestions to you so much quicker, gets improvements that you can make to you so much quicker, that you can implement so fast. And the way that it gives back prompts to you and says, hey, if this wasn't an adequate solution to your problem, what about this? Or what about this? Or it'll even maybe ask for more details. Can you give me a little bit more context to this specific aspect of your problem so I can help you better? And it kind of makes you even think deeper about the problem and get even more specific and intentional with what you're talking about. And that kind of back and forth, where it's like, it sounds crazy, but it's like you're really having a conversation with a person. That's where I find the most value out of it. It's like it's levels to it. You can use it like a Google search, but the more that you start using it and the less of a box you put yourself into in terms of how you interact with it, the better. Like I was telling Monique, my girlfriend, about it, and I was just like, hey, just all these different ideas you have, where you don't necessarily feel like just sitting down and like just writing them down. I mean, writing them down is obviously good too, but it's like just dictate it, and she's an influencer, so she uses it to come up with a content schedule that works with her work schedule. So she'll tell it like, yeah, so I work these days, this much hours. I'm usually tired around this time of the day. I work out around this time of the day. What, based on my usual schedule during the week, would be the most optimal times for me to post content where I can stay consistent, but it's realistic, and just having that back and forth. So the more you're using it in those kinds of ways, I feel like you're getting the maximum out of it. And I think, more people are getting just more used to that. It's not as scary.
Yeah. I mean, I would be pretty scared if I was like, I just left one of our job sites where some of our foremen were talking about how AI is this terrifying thing that's coming for our jobs. And I'm like, well, you guys, you're painting and you're drywalling. I don't think ChatGPT is going to roll in and start, hanging 3/4 drywall. I would definitely say if you're like I was listening to a podcast, and the one area that people are pretty freaked out about, I mean, I think the obvious thing is like maybe like an intern or some sort of like analyst for a financial company. I mean, that's definitely a job that would be, if I was in that field, well, I would be a little scared. But another one is like people who like screenwrite, or people who write like episodes for like a TV show. Some of these studios are using ChatGPT to be like, hey, here's the plot of this new show we want to do. We've got 9 episodes. We want the end goal to be this. Shoot me out, 9 examples of what the episodes could be leading up to the end goal of X, Y, and Z. So it's pretty crazy just how smart ChatGPT is. And the scary thing is, it's like it's at its beginning stages.
Yeah.
And I rarely use Google search anymore. I just go on ChatGPT. Like, I've got a problem with a mouse in my house. Send me some recommendations and tips on what to purchase. And it'll give me 5 examples. And then it'll follow up with like a question. Be like, are you noticing this mouse more in your attic or your basement? And I'll be like, oh, it's in my basement. And then it'll be like, well, okay, we'll use this instead of this. So, I mean, it's like you're having a conversation, and especially when you're doing it on your phone. I mean, it's like you're texting somebody.
Yeah.
And the person texting you back is getting back to you like in 5 seconds.
Right.
But I think it's something too that like people, I mean, it's not going away. People need to embrace it, and you need to start utilizing it. And I would say, just like, if you've never used it, just download the app, go to the website, and just start messing around, like just see how powerful it can be. And then maybe the next time you're doing a project or something for work, and just be like, I wonder if ChatGPT can assist me. And I think you'll be amazed of just its power and its sophistication.
Getting close to final thoughts here, I think touching on the whole fear aspect that people have. I mean, like you said, it's all still developing and fairly rapidly as it integrates with every major tech company and application that we use. There's just a couple things about that I think what you're saying is absolutely right. And the more that you get familiar with it, the less afraid of it you'll be. But the more you just kind of keep your distance from it, create all of these abstract ideas around it in your head, just obviously the more discomfort you'll experience just from the topic of it. But the more you just interact with it, the more comfortable you'll be, and you'll get better at using it, and you'll just find it improving certain aspects of your life. Though, obviously we know it's not a genie where you rub a lamp and, get as many wishes as you want from it. But also the other thing about how it impacts people's jobs is something we talk a lot about, especially with Mike, is you got to stay flexible and you got to stay adaptable in this environment, in this climate, in this economy. I mean, which is always good traits to have. But at the end of the day, the person who learns AI within these fields that jobs are changing, and the person that is staying knowledgeable about world events and how things are changing is going to always have the edge over the person that is comfortable in their position, just wants to do the one thing that they do, and is not going to learn about AI, So it's like, even in the music industry, which I make music, I make the music for our podcasts. I worked on a project with a few producers and songwriters, some I knew, most of which I didn't. It was all online. And what kind of struck me about this was that this was the first time I experienced this. It was like last year in the winter. We were writing songs, like reference tracks for this artist. And I was the only one who was really recording my own voice to write the songs for the person. Everyone else was using AI. Everyone else was using AI to replicate the specific artist's voice for their songs, which honestly kind of freaked me out at first, but it makes a lot of sense, because that's one thing in music when writing songs for other people is, if I write a song and I sing it with my voice, it's hard for the artist sometimes to imagine themselves singing it. But if I just use AI to recreate your voice, you can hear it exactly how you would sound singing it. And I think that artist actually ended up putting out the AI vocals at one point, which is a whole other thing. It could be a little uncomfortable, but it's also like, I mean, those artists had an edge, or those songwriters had an edge because they were implementing it in ways that just kind of make sense. Even if it's like, there's plenty of people that would hear that and be like, no, that's terrible for music. It's just like, I mean, you got to adapt, and find your comfort level with it in the ways that you want to engage with it. But it's definitely not going anywhere. So
Yeah, people got to embrace it.
yep.
But seriously, yeah, I mean, just, download the app, when you're sitting down, scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, just start asking it questions and just have some fun, and then start slowly incorporating it. And my final point is, if you're out there and you're doing, I would say for like work specifically, I think ChatGPT's the best thing it can help you with now is like, if you have a problem or like you have to have an awkward conversation and you don't know like what to say, like that is a great source to be like, hey, here's my problem. Here's the background. Can you give me some tips on like what to say, how to handle it? And ChatGPT will send you out some examples. I would say the other big thing is like anything that involves like financial reports, accounting, studying like, how much you're spending in certain categories. So, and let's be honest, a lot of businesses, like those are the two things that most businesses all kind of have in common. It's the financial part of it and it's the personal part of it. So, All right, A'Marri, well, this was a good topic.
Yeah, good topic. And I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about as AI develops and we continue to find different ways to implement it into our business. So sounds good. All right.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks, Brooke.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Small Business Confidential. To support, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also add our podcast to your favorite streaming services. Everything is appreciated, and we'll be back soon with another episode and upload schedule. The person voicing the intro's name is Travis Riley. Thank you, Travis. And the music was done by our engineer, me, Amari.